So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 ways to take your podcast and use it to position yourself as a authority, as a thought leader, as a known name in your niche. Now, these are the exact ways that I've used to grow my podcast because when I started my Shopify Masters podcast, I was legit an unknown. I didn't have no following, and my podcast Shopify Masters is in the e-commerce niche. I had no following in the e-commerce niche. I didn't have any success really in the e-commerce space, but I was still able to establish myself and over time grow myself to being known as an expert, as an authority in this space using these 3 ways. So the first way I got my start really was about landing big name guests. Okay, this is super important to land big name guests. It's the same way that you see why people want to be around celebrities, because a big part of the appeal of being around celebrities is that by rubbing shoulders with celebrities, by rubbing shoulders with people that are more established than you, that have a bigger audience, that have a bigger following, is that you also elevate your status. You elevate your authority by being around other people that have authority and expertise. So the key here is to land big name guests that have an authority, that have some kind of pull in your industry by getting them on your show. And over time, at every single episode, you get another big name guest on your show. When I say big name, it doesn't have to be some crazy celebrity. It could just be somebody that people recognize. And over time, you build more and more of a clientele or a podcast guest list of people that are big name guests. The higher you grow your authority and your status. And this is really a numbers game when you first start out. Over time, it becomes less and less of a numbers game. But when you're trying to get your first big name guest, it's going to require you to, pitch 10 people and one person says yes. Still not bad odds, right? As you grow your podcast, grow your name, grow your authority, it becomes easier and easier. And at a certain point, a point that I reach is that people now with big name guests will reach out to me rather than me having to reach out to them. Okay, so that's the first key, is to land big name guests on your show. Now, the second way to do it was something I kicked into overdrive right when my podcast started to take off more, was to partner with companies, vendors, service providers, people that are providing services to your audience then they already have some kind of following. They have an email list, they have a social media following, they have some kind of following already, and partner with them. So what I did was, with my Shopify Masters podcast, I was building an audience of Shopify merchants. So what I would do was I would go find out Shopify app creators and people that were selling services, selling products to my audience, and reaching out to them and saying, hey, I would love to feature you on my show. Do you have any power users, any awesome clients that are using your products, using your services? I would love if you introduce me to them and I can interview them on my show, and we can talk a bit about your products or your services or your apps on my show. So the way that this works is that they're now giving me an awesome guest to have on my show, and that when we create the podcast episode, and at some point during the episode we spend some time talking about the app, the product, the service that referred me this new client, this new guest, and I produce that episode with them. Now, once that company sees that episode as live, they're going to feel incentivized to promote it to their email list, promote it to their social media channels, because great things are said about them on that podcast episode. It's a great way to basically align your interests, which is to promote your podcast, align that interest with another provider, another app developer, service provider, product creator, somebody in the space that already has a following. They're going to feel incentivized to promote your podcast because good things are said about them on the show. So that's the second way, which is to partner up with companies that already have a following. The third way, this is really a mistake that I learned from early on, and this is about spending too much time on the podcast focusing on the guest. What I mean by this was that what I'm trying to change, what I am changing over time, is to focus more on giving my own input. And the best way to do this is to have like a monologue at the beginning of your show, right? Think about the way that talk shows work, right? Before a talk show starts, there's a monologue where the host is the center of attention, giving his or her perspective, talking to the audience first. Position yourself as the authority, position yourself as the expert, position as yourself as someone that has value to add before the interview actually starts. So spend the time in the first 5-10 minutes just talking about, what's coming up on that episode. The good thing about this is that you can record the monologue after the interview. So you already have a good idea what's going to come up you're already on the show because you already talked about it. You already did the interview. And you also get some ideas on what you might want to think about when the monologue actually starts. So spend some time doing an interview. Put your thoughts down on your opinions on the topics that are coming up on an interview, and give a monologue, 5-10 minutes, talking about your thoughts on it, your opinions on it. Really position yourself as an authority and put some attention on you on the show, not just about. And your show is not just going to be about an interview featuring guests. It's going to be about you, about your show. So those are 3 ways. Again, first way is to get big name guests on your show. Second way is to partner with companies that already have an audience. And a third way is to make sure that you have spent some time positioning yourself as an authority by doing a monologue at the beginning of it. Hopefully that helps. Now, if you want to get more help on launching and growing your podcast, I've set aside some time, 45-minute slots this week, to get on the phone with you to put together a podcast strategy call with you. Now, on this call, there's no pressure to buy anything at all. You will come on the call with learn more about your problems, your goals of your business, how podcasting might be a good fit for you, or if you already have a podcast, how we can grow that podcast with you. So if you're interested in taking this 45-minute free strategy call, again, absolutely no pressure to buy anything. But if you're interested in working more with me, with us, then I'll tell you more about that on the call. And all starts off with booking a call. So if you're interested in that, make sure you click that link to book a call now for a 45-minute free, absolutely free podcast strategy call. And the worst case scenario is you walk away with more clarity on where to take your podcast next. And again, you want access to this 45-minute no cost podcast strategy calls. Click the link to book your time now with me. Talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.